The Secret History of Twin Peaks is a novel that was released in 2016, 25 years after the end of the initial TV show, but 1 year before Twin Peaks: The Return, the third season in 2017. There are actually quite a few Twin Peaks books, though most of them aren't canon or don't offer any new content. Reflections on the show, critical analysis, welcome guides, and such. The Secret History of Twin Peaks is different in that it is a novel written by Twin Peaks co-creator Mark Frost. For many fans of the original series, this novel seemed like the first legit continuation of the mythos, world, and story, until Twin Peaks: The Return. I hesitate to call The Secret History of Twin Peaks a novel, actually. It does say a novel right on the dust jacket, but it's more a collection of primary sources and first-hand documents that are then notated by the novel's protagonist, FBI agent TP. The setup to the book is quite intriguing. A carbon steel lockbox is found at a crime scene. The lockbox was seemingly custom-made to house its contents, a dossier compiled by a mysterious figure referred to as the Archivist. The presentation of The Secret History of Twin Peaks is absolutely beautiful. Just on the outside of the book, the dust jacket, which only reaches about 2/3 of the way up the cover, hides an owl underneath and a foggy forest landscape on the back. Within the book is a constantly changing array of stained handwritten letters, redacted FBI documents, newspaper clippings, photographs, Air Force reports, conversation transcripts, print excerpts, and an impressively wide array of further documents. All of these primary documents are believable and lovingly crafted. The amount of variety in color and texture that went into designing every page of this book is wonderful. The presentation is easily the strongest aspect of The Secret History of Twin Peaks. The care that went into it really shows. This presentation style also makes for an incredibly varied reading experience. You won't be reading the same type of document for more than a few pages before the experience shifts into something different. Now, as I mentioned, I hesitate to call this a novel. This presentation style, though intriguing and beautiful, doesn't leave much room for character development or a narrative. Due to the nature of the dossier, most of the book is recounting past events, and since they are told through primary documents, there is more often than not a very clinical approach to the way events are described. Not a whole lot of detail or narrative exploration, often a fact-by-fact accounting of what happened in a way that isn't very engrossing. And aside for a couple of moments, I never personally felt pulled into the story. The protagonist TP isn't much of a character. The problem is that TP is almost entirely restricted to the margins of the book. TP's character development exists entirely through the notations on the dossier. There are little moments of personality in these notations, but for the most part, TP is doing their job of fact-checking and analyzing the dossier in a professional manner, which means that many of the notations just say verified. TP is a character that went on to appear in Twin Peaks: The Return. Doesn't spoil anything to say that TP is Tamara Preston, and she doesn't have much of a personality on the show either. The only plot through line for the present surrounds the identity of the Archivist. It quickly becomes clear that whoever the Archivist is has a personal relationship with the town of Twin Peaks and certain individuals within it. This could be a good core mystery to solve over the course of the book, but for me it fell a bit short. I won't spoil who it is, but I will say that the identity reveal wasn't at all a surprise. Early on in the book, it became apparent to me that it was almost certainly this person, and there was nothing to throw me off the trail or raise suspicion of anyone else or cast doubt. It didn't end up being much of a mystery. What's further unsatisfying about the mystery angle is that although it is TP's job to uncover the identity of the Archivist, she doesn't really do much in the way of mystery solving. There's no character arc with her, and by the end of the dossier, the Archivist reveals their own identity, taking away some of her agency and any potential catharsis of TP cracking the mystery. I want to take a moment just to briefly mention the character names. Some of the character names in The Secret History of Twin Peaks are seriously eye-rolling. TP is fine, it's TP like Twin Peaks, and it's like, okay, that's one. But at a certain point, it starts to feel like the majority of character names are too similar to already named characters, or meant to sound close to Twin Peaks. The Palmer last name is used for an unrelated character, which just seems like a strange choice. Then there's General Twinning, and it's like, okay, come on, does General Twinning work with Captain Peak? The word history in The Secret History of Twin Peaks is not used lightly. The dossier begins all the way back during the Lewis and Clark expedition and connects them to the town, to Owl Cave, and to the show's famous ring. The ring has a strong presence throughout the book and provides a broader context to it. There isn't an answer, per se, as clear as some people might want, but it's Twin Peaks. Clear-cut answers aren't exactly in fashion for Twin Peaks. That being said, I don't think it would be ridiculous to expect actual answers from a book called The Secret History of Twin Peaks. One area the book does offer some extra information into is the show's characters. You get pretty deep into the book before any of the show's recognizable characters show up. There's decades and decades of history to get through before the show's characters become relevant. Frost provides some extra backstory on many of the show's iconic characters and a tiny bit of information following the Season 2 finale, but he definitely seems more interested in exploring the earlier history. You do gain some additional insight into characters like Dr. Jacoby, Log Lady, and the Milford brothers. Much of the returning characters' insights are quite surface level and not all that substantial, though. Now, I want to give a warning to Twin Peaks purists that there are quite a few inaccuracies and inconsistencies between this book and the series. It's a bit of a rewriting history going on. Characters' ages change, sometimes even names change, like last names and middle names. Bits of backstory change, dates change, things like that. Mostly small, often technical things. There are some bigger inconsistencies too, like the backstory of Ed, Norma, and Nadine, which is quite different from show to book. If you think you're someone who would be annoyed by inconsistencies like this, then I would offer caution going into the book. But like I said, they're mostly small technical discrepancies. And Mark Frost has even said on record that at least some of these mistakes are intentional, and they're meant to reflect how historical accounts aren't always 100% accurate in real life. So take that for what it's worth. One big thing about this book that I found quite disappointing is that the show's fantastic surrealism and mindfuck horror elements are entirely missing. Crazy surrealism is David Lynch's bread and butter, so it's possible that Mark Frost didn't feel as comfortable writing it himself, and so chose to leave it out. I guess it had more to do with him being more interested in other areas, though, particularly Project Blue Book, which I'll talk about more momentarily. David Lynch's surrealism and general craziness is a big draw to Twin Peaks, and the book lacking that is kind of a big letdown. There are one or two moments in the book befitting of the show's particular brand of crazy, like when a giant owl man is spotted on a Boy Scout camping trip. But for the most part, this element, which I consider integral, is just not there. The supernatural element is also largely ignored in favor of the extraterrestrial angle. Mark Frost really leans into the UFO Project Blue Book angle, and it becomes the focus for the majority of the book. Large portions of this book feel more akin to X-Files than they do to Twin Peaks. I think this book might offer some insights into the differing sensibilities of Frost and Lynch. One leans more towards surreal and supernatural, while the other leans more toward alien and conspiracy. Depending on which side of the divide you find yourself on will likely impact how much you enjoy this book. For me, I'm a lifelong David Lynch fan. He's one of my favorite filmmakers and honestly flat-out favorite people. Interviews with him, documentaries about him, his music, his artwork, even his hair. I love the guy. By the same token, the UFO stuff was some of the less interesting stuff in the Twin Peaks TV show for me. I have a much higher barrier of entry for aliens than I do for surrealism. But like I said, if you find yourself on the other end of that spectrum, you might love this element of the book. I didn't dislike it, to be clear. There's some goofy fun with Richard Nixon and L. Ron Hubbard, actually. It just wasn't quite in line with my personal taste and not all that engaging. There are some really cool hidden secrets to the book itself. There are certain images that change if you wear 3D glasses like Dr. Jacoby. And there's a hidden message in this image here. It's an image of the favorite books of the members of the Bookhouse Boys. The books are enumerated to discern which book is which Bookhouse Boy's favorite. The ones are written as capital I's, which plays into the particular typewriter that the Archivist uses. If you hold this image here in front of a mirror, the numbers that appear the same backwards are 1, 8, and 11. If you string the first word of the three corresponding book titles together, you get Fear the Double. A coincidence? If this was anything other than Twin Peaks, I might say maybe, but this is Twin Peaks. And Fear the Double, of course, has significance in Twin Peaks, both to the resolution of Season 2 finale and the entire third season. It's a cool little puzzle, and who knows how many more hidden messages are within these pages. The audiobook version has an extra hidden message of its own. There's a backwards voice that, if reversed, says, "Thank you for listening." Nothing crazy, but a nice touch. For fans of Twin Peaks, I would recommend this book. If you aren't already a fan of the series, then I don't think this book will make you one. As a massive fan of Twin Peaks, I enjoyed my time reading The Secret History a great deal, even though I have plenty of issues with it. The actual production of this book is a marvel, and a must-have for any Twin Peaks completist or collectors. There's a follow-up to this book in the third season, Twin Peaks: The Final Dossier. I'll be reading that once I get my hands on it. It is much shorter than this book, actually. I reviewed every episode of Twin Peaks: The Return here on this channel, so check that out on the end screen here. Also, we played a ton of Dungeons & Dragons set in the Twin Peaks world, and that was a lot of fun. Puzzles and exploration and Garmin Bosia. Check that out if you want to explore Twin Peaks with us. Make sure you subscribe to see everything that comes out on this channel, and I'll see you in the next video.